welcome to the deep dive. You've sent us some really fascinating ancient Indian texts detailing the early history of the Kuru dynasty, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack for you today.
Yes, quite a collection.
Think of it as getting the essential DNA of this epic lineage. You've got gods, sages, kings, and some truly, well, extraordinary turns of events described here.
Absolutely.
Our mission, basically, is to navigate this intricate history in your sources, highlighting the pivotal moments and introducing you to the colorful figures that shaped it all. We're talking about things like, destiny, duty, relationships, and how actions have consequences that ripple through generations in these narratives.
And what immediately strikes you, I think, when you look at these sources is the sheer scope. It's not like a dry historical record we might expect.
No, not at all.
It's more like a vibrant tapestry, really, where myth, legend, and some pretty profound philosophical ideas are just woven together. You'll see how the human and divine realms are constantly interacting, directly influencing the fates of these early Kuru figures.
Absolutely. And get ready to meet some truly larger-than-life characters in these texts you've provided. We'll explore the story of King Dushmanta and the enigmatic Sakuntala,
A classic story.
powerful sage Viswamitra and the celestial Apsara Menaka, and the really complex life of King Yayati with his two wives, Devayani and Sarmishtha.
And those are just a few key players.
Exactly. Just a few. We'll also encounter pivotal ancestors like Bharata and Kuru themselves, and even catch glimpses of divine beings like Indra and the Vyasas, alongside the wisdom of sages such as Kanwa and Sukha.
As you delve deeper into these narratives, you'll start to see these recurring patterns and significant themes emerging. Your sources really emphasize the importance of lineage, for one,
Right.
the direct consequences of both righteous and, well, unrighteous actions, and the intricate social structures that governed this ancient world. It's a fantastic opportunity to see the roots of many concepts that would later develop in Indian thought and culture.
So prepare yourself. We're about to step into a world populated by mighty kings, shaped by divine interventions, governed by complex social rules, all drawn from the material you've given us. Expect tales of love that defies norms, ambition that, knows no bounds, curses that echo through time,
Boons as well.
blessings that shape destinies, and ultimately the very foundations of a dynasty that became legend. Okay, let's dive into your first source, which details a truly captivating encounter, the meeting of King Dushmanta and Sakuntala.
What's fascinating here, I think, is the almost accidental nature of their meeting. Dushmanta, he's out hunting alone, arrives at Rishi Kanwa's hermitage,
Right.
only to be greeted by Sakuntala. She welcomes him with traditional honors, even though the Rishi himself isn't actually there.
Exactly. And when Dushmanta asks, where Kanwa is, Sakuntala reveals he's visiting none other than Viswamitra. Now, for you reading this, that name drop is significant because the backstory of Viswamitra and Menaka is a whole captivating drama in itself, as your sources detail.
Precisely. Indra, the king of the gods, becomes apprehensive about Viswamitra's intense penance. He's worried, basically, that the sage's power might threaten his heavenly realm. So, as your texts explain, he summons Menaka, the most beautiful of the celestial Apsaras, to tempt Viswamitra and disrupt his austerities.
And Menaka, understandably, is hesitant. She knows Viswamitra's formidable reputation from these accounts, his immense energy, his quick temper, his past deeds.
Oh, yeah.
She reminds Indra how Viswamitra caused even the great sage Vasishta grief, how he became a Brahmana despite his Kshatriya birth, created a river, even a second set of stars. She's clearly intimidated by his power, a power clearly documented here.
Her anxieties, as highlighted in your sources, really underscore the immense spiritual power attributed to these ascetics. Menaka isn't just facing a mortal man, she's confronting someone whose spiritual strength rivals the gods themselves.
Wow.
Indra, however, reassures her and devises a plan involving Marut, the wind god, to disrobe her momentarily, and Manmatha, the god of love, to further entice Viswamitra.
And the plan works, perhaps a little too well, according to your texts. Menaka successfully tempts Viswamitra. Their companionship lasts for quite a long time, yet apparently seems to Viswamitra as short as a single day.
Time flies when you're being tempted by an Apsara.
Apparently. From their union, Sakuntala is born. But then, Menaka abandons the infant on the banks of the Malini River.
This act of abandonment, as you'll read, raises interesting questions about, divine intervention and its often unforeseen consequences in the mortal realm. Your sources explain that vultures actually protected the infant.
Vultures?
Yes, Sakuntas. And ultimately, Rishi Kanwa discovered her, surrounded by these vultures, and raised her as his own daughter, naming her Sakuntala because of them.
It's fascinating how the text then emphasizes the scriptural view of who truly constitutes a father, the one who creates the body, the one who protects life, and the one who provides sustenance. So Kanwa, in his role as protector and provider, is clearly established as Sakuntala's father here, as your sources make clear.
This also sets the stage for understanding Sakuntala's agency later in the story, something you'll observe. Though raised in a hermitage, she possesses a strong sense of self and her own understanding of what's right.
Which brings us back to Dushmanta. Following this initial encounter, he and Sakuntala are drawn to each other, as your source material recounts. Sakuntala, however, has a specific condition for marriage.
Right, a big one.
Their son must be recognized as Dushmanta's heir apparent.
This condition speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the importance of lineage and the future stability of the Kuru dynasty within these narratives. Sakuntala isn't just seeking a personal union, she's thinking about legacy.
And Dushmanta agrees immediately, according to your texts. They then enter into a Gandharva marriage, basically, a union based on mutual consent, no big rituals needed.
A love match, essentially.
Dushmanta promises to send an escort and bring her to his capital, but then he departs, his mind apparently filled with thoughts about Kanwa's potential reaction.
Yeah, this somewhat hasty departure and his internal doubts, as described, introduce an element of uncertainty, maybe foreshadowing future difficulties. He seems aware his actions might not quite align with societal norms.
When Kanwa returns, despite Sakuntala feeling uneasy about not being there, the Rishi, through his spiritual insight, knows exactly what happened. And surprisingly, according to your source, he's pleased.
Really?
Yeah, he approves of the Gandharva marriage for Kshatriyas, the warrior class, and even prophesies that Sakuntala's son will be mighty, illustrious, rule over the sea, possess irresistible power. Big things.
Wow. Kanwa's acceptance essentially legitimizes the union within the narrative and reinforces the idea that these consent-based unions have a place. And that prophecy sets huge expectations for the child, Bharata, who, as we'll see, becomes pivotal.
Okay, let's broaden our view a bit now, drawing from your sources to trace the wider lineage leading up to Yayati, another crucial figure.
Yeah.
Your texts take us way back from Daksha, then Manu, son of Vivaswat, followed by Ila and Puravas. It's like looking at the deep roots of a massive family tree.
Yes, and as your sources detail, each of these figures has their own significant, often dramatic story. Puravas, for instance, born of Ila, who was sort of both mother and father.
Right, that unusual circumstance.
Ruled 13 islands, had superhuman companions. But his arrogance, as the texts recount, led him into conflict with Brahmanas, and despite counsel from the wise Sanat Kumara, he was ultimately destroyed by a rishi's curse. Really highlights the dangers of hubris.
The lineage then continues through Nahusha, who your sources describe as ruling virtuously, supporting everyone, even gaining dominion over the gods through his power.
Sounds impressive.
Yet he, too, has a dramatic fall from grace by forcing rishis to carry his palanquin. His sons include Yati, who renounces the world, and the figure we'll focus on now, Yayati, described as a monarch of immense prowess and righteousness.
Nahusha's story serves as another cautionary tale, doesn't it? Power corrupting even after reaching great heights. Mistreating spiritual authorities leads to downfall.
And Yayati, as your sources indicate, has two wives, Devayani, daughter of Sukra, also known as Usanas, and Sarmishtha, daughter of Vrishaparvan. This sets the stage for a complex web of relationships and the next fascinating part, the tale of Kacha, Devayani, and the incredibly valuable knowledge of revivification. Here's where the narrative gets really interesting.
This particular narrative unfolds against the backdrop of that long, intense conflict between the Celestials and the Asuras for sovereignty. The gods have Vraspati as their chief priest, the Asuras have Usanas, or Sukra. Constant rivalry.
And a crucial advantage for the Asuras, as your texts reveal, is Sukra's unique knowledge of the Sanjivani science, the power to bring slain Asuras back to life. Brihaspati doesn't have this.
Oh, which puts the gods at a significant disadvantage. So in desperation, the gods decide to send Kacha, Vraspati's own son, to Supra to learn this vital secret. They think Kacha, being young and diplomatic, can win over both Sukra and his daughter Devayani.
Kacha is received respectfully by Sukra and makes a vow of brahmacharya celibacy and study for 1,000 years. He diligently serves his teacher and also manages to endear himself to Devayani through charm and service. Sounds like a strategic long game.
He is playing one. However, the Danavas, a group of Asuras, figure out Kacha's true intentions. Fueled by hatred for Vrispati and wanting to keep the Sanjivani science exclusive, they tragically kill Kacha while he's tending cattle.
Oh no, talk about a major setback. Devayani, understandably, is devastated, as your texts convey. She insists her father revive Kacha using his power. Sukra, moved by her grief, obliges.
But the Danavas are relentless. They kill Kacha a second time. Even more ruthless now. They burn his body and cunningly mix the ashes with wine, which Sukra unknowingly drinks. Sinister stuff, trying to ensure he can't be revived.
Devayani is plunged into even deeper grief and in despair threatens to starve herself. This puts Sukra in a terrible position. He's unknowingly consumed the ashes.
In a dramatic turn, Sukra, driven by Devayani's distress, summons Kacha from within his own stomach. Kacha pleads for Sukra's well-being from inside. In an incredible act, Sukra imparts the Sanjivani science to Kacha while he's still inside him, and then causes him to emerge by tearing open his own abdomen.
Wow, what an extraordinary sacrifice. And the consequences don't end there. Upon regaining consciousness and realizing the horror that he unknowingly consumed a Brahmana, Sukra institutes a permanent solemn prohibition against Brahmanas ever drinking wine, equating it to the grave sin of Brahmanacide. That has huge implications later on.
It truly highlights the gravity of the act and Sukra's commitment to Dharma. He then informs the Danavas that Kacha has the knowledge now and is his equal in this power.
Despite all that trauma, Devayani has developed deep feelings for Kacha. Once his vow ends, she asks him directly to marry her, reminding him of her kindness during those perilous times. You'd think it was a sure thing.
But Kacha, adhering strictly to Dharma, as outlined here, respectfully refuses. He cites her status as his preceptor's daughter, making her akin to his own preceptor, deserving respect, not marriage. This refusal is pivotal.
Devayani, understandably hurt, argues her case, reminding him of their affection, but Kacha remains firm and departs. The Celestials, meanwhile, are overjoyed he got the science, tipping the balance of power.
Kacha's unwavering ethics, even rejecting Devayani, underscored the rigidity of these codes. His success dramatically shifts the power dynamic, leading the gods to urge Indra to attack.
Okay, now this brings us to the significant dispute between Devayani and Sarmishtha, a conflict that, as your sources show, has far-reaching repercussions and eventually draws in King Yayati. It starts small, almost accidentally.
Right. As the texts recount, Indra, disguised as wind, stirs up the garments of maidens, including Devayani and Sarmishtha, who are sporting in a lake. In the confusion, Sarmishtha unknowingly takes Devayani's garment.
And, as your source material vividly describes, all hell breaks loose. Devayani vehemently accuses Sarmishtha of being her disciple and disrespectful. The hierarchy, Sarmishtha being in Devayani's service due to a previous agreement, fuels her reaction.
Sarmishtha, however, retaliates sharply, asserting her own father Vishaparvan's superior status compared to Sukra, pointing out the difference between giver and receiver of alms. Her words are cutting, challenging Devayani's perceived superiority.
The argument escalates rapidly, and in a fit of anger, Sarmishtha does something harsh. She throws Devayani into a nearby well and leaves, believing her dead. This brutal act underscores their animosity and the potential for violence over social status.
It's a stark reminder of how easily slights can escalate. Just when Devayani's situation seems dire, King Yayati arrives at the same well, thirsty after hunting.
Yayati's timely arrival feels like fate intervening. He discovers Devayani, acts compassionately, asks who she is and how she got there. This chance encounter sets off a chain reaction that shapes his life and lineage.
Indeed. Devayani, rescued by Yayati, pointedly refuses to return to Rishaparvan's city. Instead, she tells her maid, Gurnika, to inform her father, Sukra, about the incident and the insult. This signals the repercussions will be major.
Gurnika tells Sukra, who is overcome with grief and finds his daughter. Devayani recounts Sarmishtha's insulting words, especially calling Sukra a hired praise singer. That cuts deep.
Sukra's anger is intense. He vows to leave Rishaparvan's kingdom, a huge threat given his role. Vishaparvan, realizing the gravity, pleads with him to stay, offering everything, even himself.
But Sukra's condition is that Vishaparvan must fully appease Devayani, and Devayani's demand, fueled by wounded pride, is specific. Sarmishtha, plus 1,000 maids, must become her personal attendants, following her even in marriage, a powerful assertion of status.
Sarmishtha, showing duty towards her relatives who'd suffer if Sukra left, reluctantly agrees to this humiliation. Devayani is satisfied, Sukra's anger subsides, and he returns to the Asura capital, revered.
Now back to the well. Devayani, rescued, asks Yayati who he is. He explains he was thirsty from hunting. A simple exchange leads to a profound proposition.
Yes. Devayani, grateful and perhaps recognizing his nobility, surprisingly offers herself as his wife. Unexpected, given the social differences of Brahmana's daughter, Kshatriya king.
Yayati, aware of social norms, is initially hesitant, acknowledging her superior status as Sukra's daughter. But Devayani counters, citing precedents of Brahmana-Kshatriya unions and reminding him he's a rishi's son himself, arguing for compatibility.
Despite her arguments, Yayati remains reluctant, emphasizing the traditional superiority of Brahmanas. But Devayani insists no other man has touched her hand romantically and accepts him as her lord. Her determination is striking.
Yayati warns of Sukra's potential wrath. But Devayani is steadfast, and Yayati finally agrees, but only if Sukra himself bestows her in marriage. He's ensuring proper sanction.
Precisely. Yayati returns to his capital with Devayani. Fulfilling her demands, he establishes Sarmishtha in a separate mansion with her maids, honoring her needs while maintaining the hierarchy. His relationship with Devayani is long and blissful, resulting in their first son, Yadu.
But the story doesn't end. After 1,000 years, Sarmishtha reaches puberty and desires a husband and children. This introduces new potential conflict.
Sarmishtha struggles internally, wrestling with pursuing Yayati despite the circumstances and Sukra's command. Driven by desire for motherhood, she approaches Yayati secretly.
Yayati acknowledges her nobility and beauty, but immediately reminds her of Sukra's command. No summoning her to his bed while with Devayani. He knows the risks.
Sarmishtha then presents a pragmatic justification for lying in certain cases: jokes, women's matters, marriage, peril. She even argues Yayati already lied by confining himself to one companion as they both came together. She's a persuasive debater.
Yayati maintains his commitment to truthfulness as king. Sarmishtha then makes an audacious claim. A friend's husband is like one's own, so Yayati is now hers too, skillfully twisting norms.
Yayati, bound by his oath to grant requests, asks what she desires. Sarmishtha pleads to become a mother by him, attaining virtue through motherhood, stating the dependence of wife, slave, son on their owner, appealing to his duty.
And so, Yayati secretly has 3 sons, Drahu, Anu, and Puru, with Sarmishtha. The secrecy is causal, setting up the inevitable discovery.
As you'd expect, Devayani discovers the transgression and is deeply distressed, betrayed. She complains to Sukra about Yayati's deviation from righteousness and her having only 2 sons compared to Sarmishtha's 3. Huge social implications.
Sukra, hearing this, unleashes a powerful, irreversible curse. Invincible decrepitude, sudden, inescapable old age for Yayati, severe punishment.
Yayati tries to explain, citing duty towards a woman in season, scriptural condemnation of refusing such requests, justifying his actions within his understanding of dharma.
But Sukra isn't swayed. He counters Yayati should have awaited his command, accusing him of theft in the matter of duty. As Sukra speaks, Yayati is instantly afflicted. He pleads for grace, not yet satiated with youth or Devayani.
Sukra remains firm on the curse but offers a way out. Yayati can transfer the decrepitude, but with the condition: the son receiving it must give his youth in return and inherit the kingdom, achieving virtue and fame. This sets up poignant interactions.
Yayati first asks his eldest, Yadu, Devayani's son, to exchange youth for old age for 1,000 years. Yadu refuses, citing the burdens of old age. Sukra, enraged by this disobedience, curses Yadu and his lineage. They'll never inherit the kingdom.
Yayati then asks Travasu, Drahu, and Anu. Travasu refuses, fearing loss of virility, leading to a curse on his lineage, ruling regions with different customs. Drahu refuses, decrepit can't enjoy pleasures, cursed to rule roadless regions. Anu refuses, old or impure, can't perform sacrifices, cursed with short-lived progeny, unable to perform sacrifices.
Finally, Yayati turns to his youngest, Puru, Sarmishtha's son. In stark contrast, Puru willingly accepts his father's decrepitude out of profound filial piety. This selfless act allows Yayati 1,000 years of renewed youth. It highlights Puru's exceptional virtue.
Puru's remarkable willingness underscores the immense importance of filial duty and distinguishes him. Consequently, Yayati bestows his kingdom upon Puru, bypassing his elder sons, a decision with lasting implications for the Kuru lineage.
So, Yayati, now miraculously rejuvenated, indulges in youth's pleasures for 1,000 years, fulfilling desires according to religious precepts. Your sources detail his enjoyment with the celestial damsel Viswamitra in mythical locations. Sounds like he made the most of it.
The texts also clarify that even during this indulgence, Yayati remained mindful of dharma, performing duties towards gods, ancestors, the poor, brahmanas, guests, various classes, punishing criminals, protecting subjects, balancing enjoyment and duty.
But as the 1,000 years end, Yayati summons Puru. He expresses profound realization. Desires are never truly gratified by indulgence, compares it to fire. intensified by fuel, recognizes the futility of chasing worldly gratifications.
His realization is a crucial philosophical insight, the unsatisfying nature of material desires, the importance of detachment. He concludes even hoarding the earth wouldn't bring contentment. The thirst for enjoyment must be abandoned for true happiness.
Yayati, having gained this wisdom, expresses deep gratitude to Puru. He returns Puru's youth and formally reinstates him as heir. Then, renouncing worldly desires, he spends his remaining days in the forest meditating on Brahma, a complete transformation.
This decisive renunciation marks the culmination of Yati's journey, a profound shift from sensual pleasure and power to spiritual liberation, reinforces the wisdom that true fulfillment lies beyond the material world.
Following this, Yayati installs Puru on the throne and departs for the forest. His ascetic practices eventually lead to his ascent to heaven, where he lives blissfully for a time, but even paradise takes a turn. He's ultimately hurled down by Indra. What happened?
According to your texts, Indra questions Yayati about whom he considers his equal in ascetic austerities. Yayati, perhaps with a trace of former pride, boastfully asserts he has no equal among gods, Gandharvas, rishis, or mortals. This arrogance displeases Indra.
Indra sternly rebukes him for disregarding others' merits without knowing their worth. As a consequence of this pride, Yayati's virtues diminish, and he's cast down from heaven, a stark lesson in humility.
Yayati, falling, humbly requests to fall among the virtuous and honest. Indra grants this. As he descends, he's suspended, then falls to earth, encountered by Ashtaka, a righteous king who is also his maternal grandson. Another opportunity for learning.
Ashtaka sees Yayati falling, asks his identity and reason, offers comfort. Yayati identifies himself as Ashtaka's grandfather.
Ashtaka then gently questions Yayati about the celestial regions he enjoyed and for how long. Yayati recounts his 1,000-year stays, earthly kingdom, Indra's heaven, Brahma's region, Vishnu's abode, then an astounding 1,000,000 years in Nandana gardens with Apsaras.
But then a celestial messenger appears proclaiming, "Ruined, ruined, ruined!" Your texts explain his fall from Nandana is due to exhausting his religious merit.
The celestials lament his fall. Yayati asks where he'll descend. They point to Ashtaka's sacrificial region, a place of virtue.
Ashtaka probes further what caused the fall from Nandana. Yayati offers an analogy. Like poor kinsmen forsaken by wealthier relatives, celestials forsake those who lose righteousness.
Ashtaka continues insightfully. How is virtue lost? What regions are attainable through different actions? Yayati explains rebirth according to deeds, varying heaven stays, how attachments, especially to relatives, hinder emancipation.
Their dialogue delves into rebirth. Ashtaka asks about the soul's journey, subtle form to visible body, consciousness.
Yayati explains how the subtle essence enters the womb, develops into an embryo, acquires senses and consciousness.
Ashtaka then asks what happens after the body is destroyed. Does the individual cease?
Yayati clarifies the soul assumes a subtle form retaining memory of deeds, swiftly enters another form. Virtuous attain superior existences, unrighteous inferior ones like worms, insects, direct karmic consequences.
Ashtaka's questioning turns practical, achieving religious merit. He asks about paths for the 4 ashramas: householder, mendicant, student, forest dweller.
Yayati describes duties and practices for each ashrama, outlining how individuals in each stage can pursue religious merit and spiritual success according to their roles.
Finally, Ashtaka asks Yai to definitively reveal his identity, lineage, and if any other king or brahmana achieved such heights.
Yayati answers truthfully, humbly, emphasizing adherence to virtue, especially truthfulness, as the reason for God's past favor. Mentions generous gifts to brahmanas, asserts truth as the foundation of gods and rishis' adorability, and reciting their stories brings merit.
Okay, shifting focus again, let's trace the lineage after Puru, the devoted son. The texts meticulously document subsequent generations. Janameja, sacrifices, Prachinwat, conquered east, Metanara, 12-year sacrifice, married Saraswati, bore Tansu, who continued Puru's line, shows the importance of genealogical records.
You see a pattern. Grand sacrifices, conquests, legacy through marriage. Mantanara's union with Saraswati and Tansu's birth are key for continuity.
The lineage progresses through Ilina, conqueror, his 5 sons, the eldest being Dushmanta, the very king we started with, brings the narrative full circle.
Yes, and Dushmanta's son with Sakuntala is Harata, after whom the Harata race and the land are named. Underscores the significance of their meeting, despite challenges.
Harata's story takes a turn. He has 9 sons, dislikes them, they're killed by their mothers. Only through sage Haradwaj's grace does he get a worthy son, Humanyu, installed as heir. highlights the need for a virtuous successor.
The lineage continues through Bhumani's descendants. Suhotra ruled extensively. Ajamita branches into Panchalas, Kushikas.
Then Riksha, who begets Samvarana. Samvarana's reign is tough. Famine, pestilence, drought, defeat by Panchalas forcing exile in Sindhu forest for 1,000 years, adversity for the Paratas.
The turning point is Rishi Vasishta's arrival. As priest, he restores Samvarana to power, shows the crucial role of sages and divine intervention.
Samvarana's son with the Pati, Surya's daughter, is Kuru, after whom Kurujangala Kurukshetra is named. Kuru's asceticism sanctifies the field. He marries Vahini, has 5 sons, leading eventually to figures like Parishit and, crucially, Dhritarashtra and Pandu.
The texts note Dhritarashtra's blindness and Vidura's birth prevent kingship, setting up next-gen challenges. Dhritarashtra fathers the Kauravas, Pandu fathers the Pandavas.
We also learn about Pandu's curse leading to his death, and the Pandavas' divine births via Kunti. Their early lives and Duryodhana's jealousy hint at future conflicts.
This tracing brings us closer to the Mahabharata's central figures, showing the interconnected web of relationships and accumulated actions over generations leading to the Great War.
Finally, let's delve into King Mahabhisha, Ganga, and the birth of Bhishma, pivotal for his unbreakable vow. King Mahabhisha, through virtue, ascends to heaven, witnesses an incident in Brahma's assembly.
As texts relate, wind reveals Ganga's attire. Mahabhisha and Ganga exchange glances. Minor indiscretion, but Brahma curses both to mortal rebirth. Mahabhisha wishes to be Pratipa's son. Ganga thinks of Pratipa too.
Ganga encounters the 8 Vasus, cursed to be mortal. Wanting shorter earthly life, they ask Ganga to be their mother, arranging Pratipa as father. Pratipa, doing penance, is approached by Ganga, asking to be his wife.
Pratipa, bound by vows, declines. Right ties for daughter's daughters-in-law, offers her to be his future son's wife. Ganga agrees, but with a condition. His son must never question her actions, however inexplicable.
Years later, King Santanu, Pratipa's son, meets beautiful Ganga, desires her. She agrees, reiterating the condition: never question her conduct.
They marry happily. Ganga births 8 divine sons, the Vasas. But to Santanu's shock, she throws each newborn into the river, saying it's for their own good. Santanu is heartbroken but silent due to his promise.
Only when the 8th child is about to be immersed does Santanu cry out, demanding her identity and questioning her killing their children.
Ganga reveals her identity, Janu's daughter, explains the Vasas' curse requiring human birth. Santanu was the worthy father. Immersing them released them from mortal form quickly. She departs with the 8th child, Devasu. Later, Ganga adopted the Devavrata.
Santanu grieves. Many years later, near the Ganga, he encounters a skilled young man, his son, Devavrata, future Bhishma, raised and educated by Vasishta in Vedas and warfare, praised by gods and asuras.
Ganga appears, entrusts grown Devavrata to Santanu, fulfilling her promise. Overjoyed, Santanu installs Devavrata as crown prince, securing his lineage.
But fate intervenes again. Years later, Santanu encounters Satyavati, fisherman's daughter, desires her strongly. Fisherman chief's condition: their son must inherit the throne, bypassing Devavrata.
Santanu faces inner conflict. Desire for Satyavati versus commitment to Devavrata. Deeply saddened, unsure how to resolve it.
Devavrata notices Santanu's sorrow, inquires gently. Santanu, reluctant, expresses general concern about dynasty's continuation. Devavrata only son, warrior prone to danger, avoiding mentioning remarriage desire.
Devavrata learns the fisherman's condition. In an extraordinary act of selflessness and devotion, he makes a momentous, irrevocable vow, relinquishes his claim to the throne, pledges lifelong celibacy, Amacharya, so Satyavati's offspring inherit without challenge.
Assembled chiefs, witnessing this unprecedented vow, are moved, bestow the name Bhishma, the terrible vow. Santanu, overwhelmed with gratitude, grants Bhishma a boon, power to choose his death moment.
Bhishma brings Satyavati. Santanu marries her. Satyavati births Chitrangada and Vichitravirya, continuing the lineage through Santanu's second marriage, thanks to Bhishma's sacrifice.
Following their births, Chitrangada becomes a powerful king, renowned for prowess, tragically killed, battling a Gandharva of the same name.
After Chitrangada's death, younger brother Vichitravirya ascends. Still young, Bhishma rules effectively on his behalf, guided by Satyavati.
Bhishma attends the Swayamvara of Kasi's 3 princesses, Amba, Ambika, and Ambulika, displays formidable skill, abducts all 3 for Vichitravirya.
However, Amba reveals she'd already chosen the king of Sapa. Respecting her commitment, she requests release.
Bhishma, adhering to Dharma, consults Brahmanas, agrees, allows Amba to return. marries Ambika and Ambalika to Vichitravirya.
Sadly, Vichitravirya dies young, childless from phthisis, wasting disease. Satyavati is distressed, lineage again in jeopardy, appeals to Bhishma, beget offspring on the widows via niyoga to ensure survival.
But Bhishma, bound by his vow, steadfastly refuses. Satyavati reminds him of the ancient Kshatriya practice, offspring via brahmanas for lineage continuation, recounts the story of Rishi Dhritarashtra as precedent.
The story of Rishi Utatya, wife Mamata, brother Vrihaspati highlights ancient beliefs. Vrihaspati's desire for pregnant Mamata led to unborn child's protest, Vrihaspati's curse. Dhritarashtra's born blind, wise despite blindness. Married Pradveshi, children flawed, cast adrift on raft.
King Vali rescued Dhritarashtra, requested offspring on wife Sudeshna. Sudeshna sent nurse instead, 11 sons born, Kakshivat eldest. Vali inquired, Dhritarashtra explained. Sudeshna then sent, bore 5 sons Anga, Banga, Kalinga, Pundra, Suma, after whom countries were named, powerful precedent.
Following this, Satyavati reveals her own birth, conceived with Rishi Parasara on ferry, fishy odor dispelled, fragrance replaced, born on island, retained virginity. Son Dwaipayana, Vyasa Krishna, left with father. Satyavati proposes calling Vyasa to beget children on widows, as Bhishma previously suggested was traditional.
And so, Satyavati consults her sons, Vyasa. He agrees to beget offspring on Vichitravirya's widows, ensuring Kuru dynasty's continuation.
Vyasa instructs Ambika to wait. Overwhelmed by his austere appearance, dark, matted locks, blazing eyes, grim beard, she closes her eyes throughout.
Vyasa prophesies Ambika's son, strong as 10,000 elephants, learned sage, 100 sons, but blind due to mother closing eyes. Birth of Dhritarashtra follows.
Satyavati, concerned about a blind king, implores Vyasa for another son. Vyasa approaches Ambalika. Similarly terrified, she turns pale.
Vyasa prophesies Ambalika's son will be pale, Pandu, due to her fear. Birth of Pandu, still anxious, Satyavati requests another child.
This time Ambika, unwilling, sends her beautiful maidservant instead. Vyasa, pleased by her respect, grants a boon. No longer a slave, son exceedingly fortunate, virtuous, most intelligent. Birth of Vidura, Sudra mother, great wisdom.
Vyasa informs Satyavati he was deceived by Ambika, begot son with Sudra woman due to her service, then disappears. Through these extraordinary means, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, Vidura are born, continuing the Kuru race.
Vidura's birth is further illuminated by Rishi Mandavya's curse on Yama, god of justice. Mandavya was unjustly impaled as a thief.
Mandavya questioned officers about his sin. King realized error, apologized, tried removing stake, cut it off, leaving part inside. Became Mani Mandavya.
Mandavya confronted Yama. Why such severe punishment for unintentional childhood act, tormenting birds?
In righteous anger, Mandavya cursed Yama to be born on earth in the Sutra caste. Vidura is understood as Yama's earthly embodiment, born into that stratum due to the curse.
Mandavya's story reminds of just governance importance, consequences even gods face. Vidura's birth intertwined with divine retribution, karma.
Finally, your sources detail their upbringing. Raised by Bhishma like his own sons after initiation rites.
Comprehensive education, Vedas, athletics, archery, horsemanship, mace, sword, shield, elephant management, morality, history, Puranas, various learning branches.
Pandu excelled in archery, Dhritarashtra had unmatched strength, Vidura unparalleled virtue and wisdom.
Texts highlight recognition. Kasi princesses as mothers of heroes, Kuru as foremost land, Vidura most virtuous man, Hastinapura premier city.
Ultimately, due to Dhritarashtra's blindness and Vidura's birth mother, Pandu ascended the throne, setting stage for complex dynamics in future history.
Pandu becoming king, despite Dhritarashtra's strength and Vidura's wisdom, introduces political tension, setting scene for drama and conflict.
So as we bring this deep dive into the early Kuru generations to a close, let's recap some key takeaways from these incredible narratives. We've seen extraordinary births, divine interventions, human flaws and virtues, foundational events shaping destiny. From Dushmanta and Sakuntala's encounter to Yayati's complex relationships and the miraculous births of Dhritarashtra, Pandu, Vidura, these stories are rich, offering insights into ancient beliefs and values.
The enduring themes resonating throughout are the interplay of fate and free will, the importance of duty and dharma, complex family dynamics, and inescapable consequences of choices. The curses, boons, ethical dilemmas faced by these figures still hold relevance, prompting reflection today.
Consider for a moment the weight of lineage and destiny here. How much were these individuals masters of their own paths, exercising free will, and how much were their lives bound by ancestors and divine will as depicted? And how do these ancient stories inform our understanding of leadership, justice, the cyclical nature of human experience. This deep dive offered just a glimpse into a vast history. We encourage you to explore these rich texts further, uncover more layers of meaning. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.